And welcome back to Sunday Square Off. Will Arizona send a Democrat to the U.S. Senate for the first time in 30 years? Why did David Garcia's campaign against Governor Doug Ducey blow up on the launch pad? So many questions about the top races on the ballot and some predictions too. Joining us for our rapid fire roundtable, Lori Roberts, columnist with the Arizona Republic, and political analyst Chris Hurstum. Let's get some polling numbers up on the screen. Top of the ticket, the U.S. Senate race, Republican Martha McSally, Democrat Kyrsten Sinema. Here's the latest polling average from 538.com. It's a toss-up. Sinema at 49.7%, McSally at 48.2%. That's been the fairly consistent take of the polls, even as they use different methods. They seem to be arriving at the same result in general. Lori, what's worked for McSally? What's worked for Sinema in this race?
Well, what's worked for McSally is her background, fighter pilot, pro-Trump, tough on immigration. That's worked for her. Unfortunately, it works for her only so far. What's worked for Sinema, I think, is that she has portrayed herself as, yeah, at one time I was a liberal, but now I want to make compromise cool again, and my record in Congress shows that I've tried to do just that. And I think that resonates. She's
saying, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican. And she said that pretty clearly. We haven't heard that from somebody in a long time.
And isn't that refreshing to hear somebody say, I'm going to divorce myself from either party? Whether that's true or not is a different question, but I think that we need to hear more of that, especially when you're fighting for the middle, the moderate Republican and independent woman. It sounds like it would resonate.
And we've also seen McSally go into a full-on embrace of Donald Trump, as have many candidates across the country.
Yeah, which I think is a mistake. I think she would have gotten McSally would have gotten the Trump vote no matter what. And I don't think she's expanded her base in the last couple of weeks here at the end, which is critical. I think Sinema is going to win this thing. It's going to be close, but I think she's going to win by 50,000 votes, maybe a couple percentage points, because she's doing so well with independents. The Paul Bentz high ground poll that you talked about earlier in the show has Sinema winning the independent vote 2-1. Plus, Sinema's holding on to her Democratic base better than McSally's holding on to her Republican base, and I think that gives Sinema the victory.
Well, the problem for McSally was that she had to go all in Trump to get through that primary.
Yes.
It was a grueling primary against Kelly Ward, yeah. And you had to go there. The problem was she didn't soften up. It continued to be that chip on my shoulder tone of, yeah, I'm tough like Donald Trump. Donald Trump can get away with talking that way. I don't know that Martha McSally can if you're trying to appeal to that moderate independent woman.
Which may be why this is so close. Who's going to win, McSally or Sinema?
Sinema by a squeak.
Squeaker, and you've said
Sinema by a couple points.
The governor's race, Republican Doug Ducey appears to be on his way to a second term in office. He's leading David Garcia, the Democrat. There you see the poll numbers, 55% to 42%. It could get wider than that. Chris, why did David Garcia's campaign just go so far off the rails?
Well, I disagree with you with regards to going off the rails. I think it all comes down to one thing, as it usually does in politics, and that is money. When you're outspent 20-1, the problem for David Garcia is he was looking strong coming out of the primary. He won that primary by 16 points. So his candidacy wasn't a disaster in the primary election, but the Ducey people and the Republican Governors Association and the outside money, they started pummeling Garcia, calling him this liberal and frankly racist, with racist ads against him. And unlike Sinema, he didn't have any money to come back and put up his own defense and attack Ducey. Ducey basically has gone through this whole campaign without negative ads against him. And when you're pummeling somebody 20-1, in a Republican-leaning state anyway, Ducey's going to win big time.
That fair criticism. At one point, Garcia was outspent 50-1 on TV. But is it all about the ads?
No, it's not all about the ads. I think that Garcia suffered from the same thing that McSally did, which is he went all-out liberal, which I'm not really sure he had to do, to win that primary, and then he kept along that path. He went running down to New Orleans to provide some clips for the Republican Governors Association about build the wall, imagine no wall, and let's get rid of ICE, and there was no reason for him to go to immigration. His issue, his wheelhouse was education, education, education. Worst campaign ever.
Worst campaign ever. Okay, with that in mind, Is Garcia dragging down the rest of the Democratic ticket, yes or no?
I don't really think so. I think people, though, do vote straight down the ticket, but I'm going to say no, because there are enough high-profile races there that hopefully people will.
I agree with Lori on that, because you've got such a high-profile U.S. Senate race, and Sinema is helping get the vote out for the Democrats down the ticket. So I don't think Garcia is a drag on the Democratic Party.
Interesting insight into the mind of voters, how really not necessarily as straight ticket as you think they are. They're making a lot of choices this election. When we come back, some surprising toss-ups in the statewide races. Stay with us.